Hello, thank you for joining us here at Culinary Art Camp. My name is Mr. Ronnie. I'll be your butcher today. And let's go over some meat identification of beef. We have these wholesale cuts here. Have a lot of the same tendencies as other species. Today, obviously, we're talking about cattle and beef, and they are called a little different, but their properties are the same, whether it be pork or lamb for the most part. We have, starting from the animal's head, chuck, goes into the rib, loin and sirloin to the round, and on the bottom portion, the shank, brisket, short plate, and flank. And they have to be together. They have similar properties. So first, the chuck and the round, they tend to be less tender muscles, but they are a great source of roast. The rib and loin produces tender muscles that produce steaks. And then the thin cuts or specialty cuts, ground beef and stew that we'll talk about throughout our presentation. So the beef chuck makes up 29% of the animal. And here we have a lot of our common roasts. We've all probably had Granny's crock pot roast, some specialty cuts, flat iron. As you can guess, there's no part of the cow called a flat iron. It's a specialty cut that takes a meat cutter to fillet that out around a bone. Arm roast, whether it be pork, lamb, or beef, will always have that round bone in the middle. Below it, we have a blade roast, and it has a bone in it that looks like a sword or a blade, hence the name. Some people call that the number 7 bone because it kind of resembles a 7. And again, that cut will have a blade in it, no matter if it's beef, pork, or lamb. Mock tender roast gets its name because it does look like a tenderloin. I'll show you that later. And then you have the chuck eye roast. If you want a butcher's secret, if you love ribeye but you don't love paying the price of a ribeye, you can get the chuck eye. The chuck eye ends where the ribeye begins. So it's a very heavily marbled. If you haven't checked out our presentation on meat quality, please do so. A lot of marbling, a little tender, juicy steak. After the chuck, we lead into the beef rib, and this is where you get your ribeye steaks. Personally, my favorite steak. You have a lot of marbling. It's really good, juicy, fatty steak. Followed by the beef loin. Here we have a short loin selection and a sirloin selection. We have a great meat cutting demo on how to cut a sirloin selection that you can take a look at in this camp. From that short loin, we can get a T-bone or a porterhouse. What is the difference between a porterhouse or a T-bone? Well, if you look, it's called the rule of 3. As you're looking at it on the screen, the left side is the fillet side. It's true, you get 2 different types of steak in a porterhouse. You get the fillet, or the tenderloin, and the New York strip, or the top strip. But when I can put 3 fingers on the left side of that steak, I can sell it as a porterhouse steak. Give it a try, 2 steaks in 1. You can debone it and have just the tenderloin. If you remember, I said the mock tenderloin looks a lot like the tenderloin. There it is on the left bottom. We had a funny joke in meat science called the tenderloin steak is a 2 steak. It is too tender and too expensive for some folks. Very tender, fragile. That's just showing you that I didn't lie to you. You have a top loin and a fillet on a T-bone porterhouse steak. Again, check out our meat cutting demo of this sirloin section, but this is where your top sirloin steaks and tri-tip steak. You may hear it called a California brisket, cooked low and slow. And who likes beef kebabs? Beef kebabs comes from the sirloin section. Beef round is up next. That beef round, we have the top round, bottom round, and knuckle primals. Bet you didn't know a knuckle sandwich was a real thing. On the beef round, the top round, you have top round steaks and top round roasts. You probably won't see a top round roast in the store because it is called something else. Who can guess what that is? It is the London broil. And also a great source of beef jerky. Very dry. The beef bottom round is where we have eye of round roasts and steaks. What I like to do with that eye of round, if you're very good, you can fillet that out and flatten it out like a piece of newspaper. You can take pepperoni, ricotta cheese, and spinach and wrap it and tie it, and then you can create an Italian pinwheel. How many of y'all have ever heard of an Italian pinwheel? And of course, we have the rump roast, very popular roast that comes out of this section. Beef round, sirloin tip, here's the knuckle sandwich. The beef brisket is a thin cut. It is a big, coarse, grainy meat. This is where we get the barbecued brisket, one of our favorite. I challenge you to tell me one more thing that's very popular with the beef brisket. What other type of roast do we get from the brisket? I'll give you a hint. It is pickled. If you can figure it out, tag us at UF Culinary Camp on Facebook or on Twitter. Let's see those answers. We have short plate steaks used for cooking fajitas and flank steaks. And this is my favorite part of the presentation. These are our variety meats. You may have heard that we eat everything but the squill on the pig. Well, we eat everything or use everything but the moo on a cow. If you don't know, the tongue has to be skinned. It's made into very rich dishes. Liver is popular, probably the most popular variety meat. Oxtail is personally my favorite on here. And what is sweetbreads? What in the world is sweetbreads? This is another challenge. Tell us what you think sweetbreads are. Remember to tag us at UF Culinary Camp on Facebook, Twitter, social media. Have your parents help us. Let's see if you can figure that one out. I'll give you a hint. It is not chitlins. And thank you for taking the time to meet. Please check out our other presentations in our culinary camp. Look at the cutting demonstration. Make sure you have your parents' permission. Seek your parents' help. And now let's look at some cooking methods and let's put it into action. Send us some pictures, tag us of you actually cooking, and look forward to seeing it. Thank you, and continue on your progress.